How has your child's hearing loss affected your immediate and extended families?
My child becoming deaf affected our immediate family. There's only 3 of us, my husband, myself, and our son. It affected us for the last 20 years very profoundly. Our lives would have been very different if he'd been a hearing child. My husband has said several times that if our child had been hearing, we would have been able to ignore him. A lot of hearing families, they don't communicate at all. There are a lot of parents who don't know sign language that don't communicate with their deaf kids, but there's just as many hearing parents who don't communicate with their hearing kids. We were unable to ignore our child because he was deaf. We wanted a relationship with him, so we had to work. It was enjoyable work. It was rewarding work. We've been able to learn a lot. We've been able to meet people that we would have never met otherwise. My very best friends in the world are those who I've met through my son. People who either are interpreters or who have kids of their own who are deaf, who work with kids who are deaf, people that I respect a lot. I would have never met any deaf adults, more than likely, if I had not had a deaf son. So it's opened up the whole deaf community to me. Partly because I was open to that, but because of some deaf individuals, professionals and other people we've come in contact with, we've been able to get to know a whole culture, a whole environment that we would have never got to know otherwise. The extended family has been an ongoing source of grief for us in many ways. There's only a couple of people in our extended family that know how to communicate with our son. Our parents, none of our parents can sign. So all 4 grandparents cannot sign with our son and have not been able to sign since he became deaf. They may have gone to 1 or 2 sign classes, but they were overwhelmed by it and they couldn't learn. They said they were too old. We even made a little videotape of ourselves signing the ABCs and different signs, and we sent it to our family. We've sent them books about deaf people, taken them to different deaf events here and there. Our extended families are not as involved and close with our son as we would like. Now, I do have a sister who learned how to sign. She is the person who we named in our wills as the person who would take care of our son if we were to die. So she took it extremely seriously, and she started learning sign language immediately. Now, this sister is very, very bright, very capable person. Not everybody has a sister like this, so I realize I'm very fortunate. We're fortunate to have her, but he is closer to her than anyone else in the family because she can sign with him. Her oldest daughter, Nick's cousin, is very close to Nick because she can also sign pretty fluently. She can fingerspell anything she doesn't know the sign for. They're only 7 weeks apart in age. Many times we will invite Claire to come, his cousin Claire, to come with us on a ski trip, on a vacation, because she can be a companion to our son. We don't have to function as interpreters between those two. They can communicate just fine together, and they enjoy each other. And so we are fortunate to have a couple people who can sign in our family. The other people, the grandparents, the other aunts and uncles, all the other cousins that are there, they may not know how to sign anything, but we still realize that they love our son, and we've tried to show our son by allowing him frequent contact with these people that because they don't know how to sign, it doesn't mean they don't care about him. we've had to watch our own attitude about this because we've had some anger about it in the past. But when Nick was about 8, maybe 9, I talked to another mother who had the same issues. Many of us do have these same issues. And she said, well, I realize that they don't know how to sign. I was angry about it for a while, but then I decided to just teach my son to use my family as guinea pigs for how to communicate with the hearing world in general, because the hearing world in general doesn't know how to sign. Well, I thought, she's right. They don't. So I started teaching my son how to compensate for people not knowing how to sign, instead of just being mad that they don't know how to sign. To do something constructive like, hey, let's write, make a sign for writing with a piece of paper. Most people can understand that and get out pieces of paper and pencils and write to each other. My family has done that with him frequently. When he got to be a little older, they started texting each other. Teenagers, he communicates just fine with teenagers through texting because they all text each other anyway. He is on the email list that the aunts and the uncles send out. We forward emails to him. There were a few years there where he couldn't read and write well enough to do this, and they couldn't sign well enough, and he didn't know how to compensate. So there were a few years of awkwardness, but once he hit 14, 15 years old, those things were solved by being able to read. He was able to read and write English. So email, texting, those kinds of things. And then, of course, the VRS, video relay services, have been helpful also. He can communicate with other people through that as well. But it's amazing to me, he doesn't really use that a lot to communicate with family. He'd rather read and write than to go through an interpreter any day. I think it's been a growing process for us, just like the other part, a learning process, because we've had to accept things about our extended families. They aren't going to learn how to sign. They aren't going to adjust their lives by always having on their captions on their TV or making it easy for our son. But in a way, you learn something from this, because if your family won't do this for you, you sure can't expect the rest of the world to do this for you. So our child has grown up realizing that the world isn't going to just adjust to fit him. He's going to have to adjust to fit the world if he wants to participate in that.